Awesome. Thank you, Colin. And thank you everyone for joining us today. So today's topic is building DDoS response plan and how to utilize Azure DDoS protection in Azure to build that plan, to use the features that we have and the artifacts. My name is Saleem Bseeu, and with me presenting is Mathu. So let's start. So the agenda we have for today for our presentation, and I hope that you will find useful. We will start with the DDoS attacks, types of DDoS attacks, the Azure DDoS protection, the infrastructure, and also the paid DDoS protection, difference between them. And we will also go into some details about the 2023 DDoS holiday season report I will share with you. Then we will go into the different steps of the DDoS plan. We have the incident detection, communication, mitigation and recovery, post-incident steps. If you have any questions, feel free to send them in the Q&A. However, we will also have at the end of the session around 15 to 10 minutes. So if you can also send the questions there and we will answer them. Okay, so let's start. So first thing we will start with what's the DDoS attacks, right? Like let's focus on the DDoS attacks themselves, what they are. So an attack is when we have bad actors sending a large floods of legitimate traffic to your application, to your workload in the network you have. And primarily, usually we see that they use some sort of a botnet to accomplish a big amount of an attack that has a different disruption. So botnets usually are compromised of compromised devices or personal workstations and servers that they have. And they have some sort of a malicious software that is installed and it's used to control the bot. And it can be, of course, controlled remotely. So the goal usually is to take down the service by exhausting the resources that you have or the resources of the network, like a firewall, maybe also some deep packet inspection that you have. And this can result in the like poor website or application performance, and it can also knock it offline altogether. So this type of attack is one of the biggest security concerns we see today. It is very costly to the business, but it's incredibly cheap and easy for bad actors to initiate. So why should you care, right? Like specifically in Azure, any public IP is vulnerable to DDoS attacks, and it is one of the top causes for service availability for large enterprises and also SMB, SMC customers. So again, DDoS attack, if not mitigated, can be costly to the organization due to the loss of customer interaction with your backend or dynamic resource scaling that is happening on your Azure deployed resource. So the different types of attacks that we have are, for example, and let's go here. So the different type of attacks we have, first one is the volumetric attacks. So these type of attacks usually use a massive amount of traffic that saturates the bandwidth of the victim system, right? So these type of attacks are pretty easy to generate, either using DDoS for hire services or the attackers employing a simple amplification techniques. It can generate such high quantity of traffic that it can completely block the access to the end system, your website, or servers that you have hosted there. These attacks are usually measured in bits, packets per second, and some examples are for like ICMP flood, IPsec flood, or UDP flood. The second type of DDoS attacks are protocol attacks. So these are also known as state exhaustion attacks. These type of attacks can cause a service disruption by consuming all of the available capacity of the web application service you have, or the capacity for intermediate resources you have, like load balancers, deployed firewalls, or other proxy services you have in between. So it abuses the flows on the network layer, exploiting protocols like IP, ICMP, IPsec, and the flows on the transport layer like TCP and UDP protocols. The most common example for these type of attacks is the TCP sync flood attack. So this attack exploits the TCP handshake by sending a large target a large number of TCP sync packets, or known also as like initial connection request with a spoofed source IPs. And then your machines or the victim machines responds to each connection request and keeps waiting for the response to finalize the handshake. And of course, this response never comes. So it's utilizing the resources you have. It will keep them in open state, waiting for the response. And when you have a huge number of requests, it can exhaust all the resources, and your web server or your source becomes unresponsive in that case. The third type of DDoS attacks are the resource attacks or application layer attacks. So these are layer 7 attacks that target the backend server. The goal of these attacks is usually to exhaust the resources of the target application and to abuse the flows and vulnerabilities on your application itself. An example for this is targeting websites and web servers that handle HTTP requests. So usually a simple HTTP request is easy to execute on the client side, so where the attacker is, but it demands a lot of the target server to respond, right? So it uses more resources to respond than for the attacker to send a request. And because the server likely loads many files, runs databases and queries and such, depending on what you have on your architecture. So this type of attack is a bit challenging to identify, defend against, because it usually uses traffic that is legitimate and can be difficult to know when it's malicious. Of course, a good mitigation for this is to have a WAF, an example like Azure application firewall WAF on application gateway WAF or front door WAF. So you can use it on both of them wherever you have the application layer load balancer, and you can enable WAF on them. Next, let's have a look at the Azure built-in infrastructure DDoS level of protection, and also the difference between the Azure DDoS protection and the level or infrastructure level protection. So the built-in infrastructure is there to protect Azure DDoS attacks targeting Azure platform, Microsoft online services, right? And these are like the platform itself where you have your resources on. So the infra level DDoS protection protects any resource in Azure, and this includes also customer applications. It ensures that when a customer application is attacked, there is no impact to the other customers in the same data center and region. So in an event of a DDoS attack, the infrastructure level protection is designed to prevent any impact on the Azure platform. So detection policies and thresholds are usually high, and the application targeted attacks can sometimes bypass this infra level DDoS protection because the throughput in that case is lower than the threshold for the infrastructure level DDoS protection. And sometimes even medium-sized attacks can impact customer applications. And let me give you an example just to clarify this. For example, if you have like a web server in your workloads, and let's say an attacker starts like a 200 packet per second TCP sync attack on your web server, the platform itself will most likely handle this without a problem. It will see it as a normal traffic because it's pretty small amount with all the traffic that is going through it. However, your web server, depending on the size you have, on the load balancing, and your architecture, could see this as potential as an attack, and it could bring down your server. And this is why customers need also the Azure DDoS protection, which is dynamic, and it's designed to protect against also attacks targeted at your specific workloads and your applications. In an example like this, the Azure DDoS protection will have a specific threshold based on your traffic and the scaling out. So it can detect also these type of attacks, and it can protect your specific applications and also workloads. So let's have a look at the report for DDoS attacks we saw on the 2023 holiday season. So this is based on the report. The link is down there, and you can also read it. There's more details there, but I would like to share with you some information about the type of attacks we've seen and what is currently happening with the different types of DDoS attacks. So during the peak busy 2023 holiday season, and usually we see a lot more attacks during the holiday season. So we saw a significant amount of volume of attacks. The daily peak, 3,500 attacks, and 15 to 20% of these were large scale, exceeding 1 million packets per second, which highlights the need for a robust DDoS protection, especially during the peak periods. The geographical origins of these attacks have shifted compared to last year's that we've seen. So China is now the leading source with 42% of the attacks. Then we saw also USA with 18%. So this could suggest a potential trend of attackers that are targeting cloud resources across different regions that we have. We saw also that the attackers are constantly evolving their tactics. So UDP-based protocols dominated with 78%, and likely targeting gaming and web application servers. Additionally, we also noticed more DDoS attacks based with Quick protocol, which is a new transport protocol, and we've seen like an increase in these types of attacks. We have successfully mitigated a record-breaking of 1.5 terabits per second DDoS attacks targeting an Asian gaming customer. So this attack stood out due to its high level of randomization and multiple attack sources. So we see like we have been able to mitigate this attack even though they use multiple sources and a lot of randomization when it comes to the attack vectors. So last but not least, the evolving threat of botnets. So cyber criminals are using more and more cloud virtual machines to launch DDoS attacks. And this is also taking control of legitimate VMs you have in your workloads and initiating the attacks from there, from the inside to different resources. And just one note here, the Azure DDoS protection itself, it can protect against attacks coming from outside to your public IPs. At the same time, it can also protect against attacks starting from inside of your environments. So in the case if there was you have a few VMs servers that were hijacked, then in that case, if they started a DDoS attack, the Azure DDoS protection can also find those attacks and protect you or other customers against those attacks. So if you want to read like more about this report and also deep dive into it for more information, we will also provide the link that you can use, and you can have a look at what we've seen lately. So let's start with building a robust DDoS response plan. And what we will focus on is how you can use Azure DDoS protection in each step of this plan. So of course we will not go into details of building this, as this will be different from organization to organization depending on the size and the resources that you have. But we will share with you how you can use Azure DDoS protection metrics, monitoring alerts, artifacts we have, and different integrations to make sure that you can integrate it with your DDoS response plan. So, and we will start first with the incident detection. So we will show how early detection is critical for minimizing the impact of DDoS attacks, also monitoring network traffic for unusual spikes and patterns, and utilizing the Azure DDoS protection metrics and also logging for that. Then we will go into communication with emphasis on the how to communicate, how to get the information you need, and also how to reach out to the rapid response team for help on the mitigation and also after the attack investigation. Then we will go into mitigation and recovery. So understanding how the Azure DDoS protection does the mitigation, understanding how the logs that you can look at, the alerts that you can set, and also where the attack was done. Then we will go into the post-incident steps. So here is where you will conduct a post-incident review to identify the lessons learned. So you can update your DDoS response plan based on the findings of the review, and also, of course, test your DDoS response plan regularly to ensure its effectiveness. So we will go into more details and how you can use the Azure DDoS protection to effectively in each step of this plan. So first, we will start with the incident detection. So understanding the science of a DDoS attack, right? There's a few key indicators that you should watch out for. First one is the unusual traffic patterns. So sudden spikes in incoming traffic, especially if they overwhelm your network services, could be indicative of a DDoS attack. And then I will show you how you can do that in the logs and metrics. Service degradation, increased latency, so monitoring latency metrics to make sure that you can identify abnormal delays in response times. And then, of course, resource exhaustion, right? So keeping an eye on CPU, memory bandwidth to make sure and detect excessive consumption if it's caused by DDoS attack. So we will start with the Azure DDoS protection metrics. As I said, right, like it's important to find the key indicators of when there's attack, and also understanding how Azure DDoS protection works, because the DDoS protection on Azure is not an inline DDoS protection. What means it's that it will only start mitigation when a specific threshold is met. So we have three different thresholds for that. We have a TCP, TCP sync, and also UDP. These are done automatically by our policy auto-tuning, which is based on the traffic and also the scaling where you have the public IP address, right? So these metrics can be found directly on your public IP. So each public IP that you have where you have the DDoS protection enabled, and you know that it could be vulnerable to DDoS attacks. When you go to monitoring, and then you find metrics there, you can use the inbound packets DDoS to understand like how many packets were coming during an active mitigation. At the same time, you can use one of or all three different thresholds, so you can see what's the threshold that the policy set for you, and make sure also that this threshold is correct for your applications that you have running behind it. And what I mean by this is making sure that, for example, if you have a specific web server and you know that it should be able to handle until a specific number of packets per second, then you can check this policy to make sure that the threshold is correct and it's not more, let's say, or too low for your workloads. And we have in the metrics, we have also the under DDoS attack or not. And this is the part where it can help you with the incident detection. So under metrics, if you select under DDoS attack or not, it will have only two values, which is 1 and 0. 0 means that there's nothing happening, the threshold is not met, and there is no active DDoS mitigation. 1 means that there is an active attack and the attack is being mitigated by the Azure DDoS protection. So this can help you understand like when there is a DDoS attack and for incident also detection. And you can use this metric to configure an alert based on this, right? So you can configure an alert that will send you an email or it will send you different type of an alert that you're using in your organization in your DDoS response plan. And this will alert if there is an active DDoS mitigation, and then you can follow the DDoS attack to see what's happening and also help with mitigating the attack. So this is one way of doing it. Another way is using the Azure DDoS notification logs. So we have three categories of Azure DDoS protection logs. This is one of them. It's called notifications. So notifications will have only 2 messages. The first one is mitigation started. So this will show you when, this will send you a log when mitigation starts on your public IP. It will provide information, for example, as you can see down there, that the inbound sync traffic exceeds DDoS protection threshold, which in this case is 20,000 packets per second. And as I said before, right, this is based on the threshold that you have. So if it's exceeded, you will receive this message, and it will say that on that specific public IP, the mitigation started. So what this can help you with, right? You can also set this as a specific alert, and you can we have a template that you can deploy immediately, and you can have this alert sent to you when there's an active DDoS mitigation, and at the same time when the mitigation stops, right? So this can help you with alerting the application owners and also your SOC team whenever a DDoS attack starts as soon as possible. And we also have an enhanced DDoS protection alert with logic apps. So this is more enhanced. It will send more information and it uses logic apps. Let me provide you with some more information about this. So this alert will, when the DDoS attack mitigation starts, it will send you an email with the target public IP, which IP is affected, the name of the public IP, DNS name. You have also the specific resource attached. So if you have like Azure Firewall, Application Gateway, your VMSS, wherever you have the public IP attached, it will send you the type and also the resource name, the region, and information like this. And it will also send, or it will also use the tags. So the tags here, it will be used so it knows where to send, for example, this email, and it can send it directly to the application owner who manages it, right? So this alert is more enhanced. It provides more details. It provides also like a link to the search results, which is the query that it uses. And additionally, if you see on the right corner here at the bottom, you will see also result of tests. So what this logic app does, it will send a get HTTP request to the public IP that you have, and this is an example. You can use this if you have, for example, a web application, and it will try to get a response from it. So in this case, you can see that the request was sent, and we get as a result 502, which means that it couldn't reach to the backend servers. So in this case, it means that your application is down. So it tells you this, sends it to the email to the application owner, and they can work on this, and immediately, because they have all the details, they know which resource is affected, what's happening, and also additionally if the specific web application resource is down. There are more details. We have a blog post we wrote on this. We will provide also the link to it. So if anyone is interested, I think this is extremely useful for alerting and also for detecting DDoS mitigation as soon as possible with all the relative information. Okay, so another place where you also get the alerts and information on the incident is the Microsoft Defender for Cloud. We have the integration for Azure DDoS protection. Additionally, of course, it also provides some recommendations if you have unprotected public IPs. So if public IPs don't have any Azure DDoS protection enabled on them, it has also alerts that are on the single dashboard. And these alerts, as I said, right, like if there's a DDoS mitigation, it will show you alerts directly on your MDC, and also some regulation compliance recommendation that if you're using one of them, then also it will show you that. And most of them, at least, they require DDoS protection, and it can show you which resources are compliant and which resources are not compliant. So this one also helps with the incident detection and also alerting. And last but not least, we have the Azure DDoS protection with Microsoft integration. So if you're using Microsoft Sentinel, you can send the DDoS logs to your Microsoft Sentinel workstation, and it will also populate incidents in your Sentinel if there is an active DDoS attack, and you can also use this to monitor the incidents and also to resolve them directly here. So as I've showed you, right, like there's a few different places you can enable alerts and also detection depending on what you need and also how it fits into your DDoS response plan. And this is one of them with the Microsoft Sentinel detection. We have MDC, metrics, and also logging, and the enhanced logging with the Logic app. Okay, so next one we have is the communication. I'm gonna give this to my colleague Andrew.
Thanks, Saleem, for that great presentation. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. I hope everyone can be able to see this.
Yes, all good.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So we are continuing with building the DDoS response plan. And in this step, or rather in the next steps, I'll take you through effective communication, the mitigation and recovery, as well as the post-incident steps. So to begin us off, from where Saleem left us, we'll start with communication. And usually this is one probably of the most forgotten aspects when it comes to building that response plan. And mostly it happens because when the attack begins, we're in a state of panic, and sometimes this communication is not effective. And it's also important to have an effective communication strategy to mitigate the negative consequences of this attack. As you know, the confidence of both internal and external stakeholders, and also the public perception can become negative. So it's always important to have your communication ready in the event of an attack. So in this next section, we'll take a look at that, as well as how you can engage our Azure DDoS rapid response team. How can you communicate with them in the event that you are under attack or you want further assistance from this team? So to begin us off, there are a couple of pillars, and this can apply generally to all organizations when it comes to effectively communicating as part of this plan. And the first one is to establish good internal and external communication channels. So you should always ensure that your communication channels, both within the organization and also externally, have been established, and this can include email, chat platforms, phone lines, as well as collaboration tools. Secondly, it's also important to have well-defined roles and responsibilities of the team members who will be involved in this communication. So it's good to designate who is responsible for disseminating this information, responding to queries, and also coordinating any communication efforts. Thirdly, it's also good to establish escalation procedures. So you should establish a well-defined process for escalating communication in these urgent or critical situations in the event that you are under this attack. Specify when and how to escalate issues to higher management or specialized teams. So all of these form some of the good practices that can make an effective communication part of your plan. Moving on, we also have what we call our Azure DDoS rapid response. And this is activated during an active attack for customers who have Azure DDoS network protection. So those customers will have access to DDoS rapid response team, and this team can help them with the attack investigation during an attack and even post-attack analysis. So this also forms, in the context of Azure DDoS protection, part of that communication strategy, being able to communicate with this team if indeed you need further assistance. So there are a couple of prerequisites for the customers when they want to engage with this team. So in the case of DDoS attack, they find the performance is severely degraded or the resource isn't available. They can reach out to the team. Also, if they think that the resource is under attack, or the DDoS protection service isn't mitigating the attack effectively, they can also go to a DDoS rapid response. If in case they're planning an event where they expect a surge in traffic, the network traffic will increase significantly. They can also reach out to this team so that the thresholds can also be adjusted. And we saw that a bit earlier when Saleem mentioned it. And then also if the attacks have a critical business impact. So to access or to engage with this team, it's pretty easy and straightforward. So they'll create a new support request within the Azure portal, and then they'll choose the issue type as technical, as you can see here. Then they'll choose the resource from the drop-down menu. So they need to select a DDoS plan that's linked to the virtual network being protected by DDoS protection. Then on the next page, they'll select severity as a critical impact, and then problem type as under attack. And then thereafter, they're going to provide any additional details and submit the support request. So this can also form a very good tool and also very good support when it comes to your communication when you're under a DDoS attack and in the event you need further assistance. So having taken a look at our communication, the next thing we'll take a look at is mitigation and recovery. So here we look at this mitigation specifically from the viewpoint of Azure DDoS protection. What does it do in the backend to mitigate that DDoS attack? What are some of the post-incident analysis that you can take a look at or do? And then finally, we'll mention as a good practice and as part of business continuity, you always have recovery and backup for your systems. So to begin us off, when it comes to mitigation, and we are using Azure DDoS protection, what it does is that it does this in the backend with no user configuration required. And this is done through an intelligent traffic profiling mechanism that is called adaptive tuning. So this adaptive tuning will learn your application's traffic over time, and it will select and update the profile that is most suitable for your service. And this is through machine learning algorithms. So based on that, a policy is assigned to the profile that fits your environment, and DDoS mitigation occurs automatically for an IP address that is under attack. And when the policy threshold is exceeded. So in the event that there is indeed, and this is just something to mention, there's a legitimate attack, and in the unlikely event that you incur a scale out or even a data transfer due to this DDoS attack, DDoS for the network protection provides you a protection against unplanned resource costs. So in essence, you do get what we call a credit. So you receive a credit for resource costs that were incurred as a result of a documented DDoS attack. But in the event, that is, of course, in the highly unlikely event, as adaptive tuning, like I mentioned, is automatically learning your traffic patterns. It sets that threshold, and with that, you are able to effectively mitigate against those DDoS attacks. Just to go further into the protection thresholds, and this was mentioned also earlier, the three Azure DDoS protection will provide 3 auto-tuned mitigation policies, and these are for TCP SYN, TCP, and UDP for each public IP of the protected resource. These are learned or auto-configured through machine learning based on network profiling. And the DDoS mitigation will occur for that IP address when it is an attack and when the policy threshold is exceeded. So once this threshold is met and the mitigation starts, that means that traffic will be forwarded to be scrubbed by our Azure DDoS protection service, which will analyze each packet and deem it whether it is malicious or not. And if it's malicious, it will drop it. If it's legitimate, it is going to forward the packet to the end service. So this in essence means that a legitimate user would not be impacted, while of course attackers would be dropped. However, there are some cases, a few cases where the customer might want to have this threshold changed, probably to ensure that, for example, if they have a very low mitigation and this is impacting the application, they can open a support service for this. So that's how mitigation is done within Azure DDoS protection. So as part of this, we also have our DDoS mitigation reports, and this can also help with this post-incident analysis. So once this mitigation is ongoing, you also want to know what exactly is happening in the backend, and this is where you can come in and look at these mitigation reports. So basically, a mitigation report, DDoS mitigation report, this is a log type that provides insights into the attacks on your resources. These reports are automatically generated, but they need to be enabled through the diagnostic settings. So these logs utilize the aggregated, collected network flow, and they provide detailed information about the attacks targeting your resources. So once they are enabled once they're enabled on your diagnostic settings, you can process them using log analytics, the storage account, or even Event Hub, or even send them downstream for integration with SIEM systems. So the way they work is once the public IP address resource is attacked, the reports start generating immediately during the mitigation. And these reports are incremental, and they're generated every 5 minutes. And there's also what we call a post-mitigation report that shows a summary covering the entire mitigation period. And the reason for that is that even during prolonged DDoS attacks, you still have access to the current mitigation snapshot and a comprehensive summary once that attack is over. And here you can just see in our screenshot just an example of what we mean by that. So you'll have these incremental reports as well as a summary post-mitigation report. So this also forms a part of the mitigation strategy in the event that you are under that DDoS attack. And in some of these fields, what you'll be able to see in this report, you'll see the attack vectors, the traffic statistics, the reasons for the drop packets, protocols involved, source continents, source countries, and of course with this you have better visibility into what is going on. Finally, for this section, we have the recovery. And in terms of recovery, here we are looking at it from a business continuity point of view. And this is good practice, not only for DDoS attack, but also for cybersecurity as a whole. So you'd like basically, of course, to, in the event of an attack, DDoS attack, do some of this, that is isolate your affected resources so that, of course, this attack doesn't spread further. And we have known and we have seen that DDoS attacks are used as a conduit for secondary attacks. So it's a good practice to isolate your affected resources in terms of business continuity. And this is part of this recovery process, is to ensure, of course, you have your disaster recovery plan in effect. If you have backups, if you have failover, you ensure that these are put into action. And then, of course, further to this, you can even go further and patch any vulnerabilities that within your system to, of course, stop the attack and also stop any other secondary attacks. And just to mention on this, we do have a solution. It's called Azure DDoS Sentinel solution. So with this, we're actually able to ingest the DDoS logs into Sentinel. Like you saw earlier when Saleem mentioned part of those integrations. So you're able to analyze these logs, generate incidents, and even stop these attacking IP addresses from doing further damage. So those attack IP addresses, they can be used in other security solutions such as Azure File, Azure WAF, and all of this is done automatically. So, of course, you know that is also part of defense in depth, and I will also see that in a short while. Next, we have the post-incident steps. And here, basically, we look after the attack, the mitigation has happened, you did have a DDoS attack. So what do you do next after this? So here we look at the post-attack investigation and analysis. What do you do? What tools within Azure can you use to be able to investigate further and see whether you're vulnerable? What more can you do? We also look at some best practices that you can use to protect yourself and also to enhance your plan. And then we'll also look at testing. How do you test and ensure that you are prepared, being proactive rather than reactive? So to begin us off, and this is with the Azure DDoS Protection Workbook. So this is a flexible canvas that you can use to gain insights into a distributed denial of service attack, into a DDoS attack. So the attack has occurred, it's been mitigated. So you want to go further, do your investigation. You want to know which public IP addresses were involved, what were their sources. So with this workbook, you're able to go further and do a thorough investigation. So this workbook will essentially visualize the security relevant Azure DDoS events, and you'll use several filterable panels. We have various tabs, a summary, a metrics, as well as an investigation tab. So it provides you a consolidated view of DDoS related metrics, logs, and of course reports. So now I'm just going to quickly, just as you're here, also just show you this workbook. So this workbook is available within our GitHub. So you can easily deploy it and use it as part of the investigations to go further into what happened during that attack. So here you can see the three tabs that I mentioned. You have your DDoS summary. So this will show you all events that are related, DDoS related events. You'll see your traffic overview. In terms of reporting, you'll see the last 10 reports. You also have your resource lookups. Down here, you'll see a visual representation of the reporting in terms of protocols, continent of origin, countries of origin. You'll also see a breakdown, a summary of each of them, as well as the mitigation logs. If I go down here further, we'll see the flow logs, which will also show you further details if it was dropped, if it was forwarded. You can also use the DDoS metrics. So with metrics, you're able to see, like we saw earlier, within the incidents. Now the metrics tell you what happened to that public resource during that attack. So again, you'll see an average or a summary of exactly what went on. Your inbound, for example, UDP packets to trigger the DDoS, whether it's under DDoS attack or not. And of course, this now gives you a good summary, especially whereby you have several or many public IP resources, and you want to see a summary in terms of metrics. Finally, you also have the DDoS investigation tab. And with this, again, you can use it for further investigation. You'll be able to see the top attacking IPs, allowed traffic during mitigation, dropped traffic, as well as the mitigation activity. So with this, you are now able to also have that visual view of exactly what happened. And this can also, and of course, this also forms part of your post incident analysis. So again, this tool, this workbook is available for you to be able to use and of course investigate further. Great. So with that, I'm going to move on. The next one we'll take a look at is in terms of best practices. So again, this forms part of our post-incident analysis. We want to know what can we use to protect ourselves, not only now, but also going forward. What lessons have we learned? And this can form part of that. So we have these best practices, and they're actually also found within our documentation. Now there's a link to Azure DDoS protection fundamental best practices. And with this, what we basically say is to have these three pillars. So first of all, is to design for security. So you prioritize security throughout the entire life cycle of the application. That's from the design to the implementation, to the deployment and to the operations. It's also important to understand your application architecture and also to focus on the pillars of software quality. You should also be aware of typical traffic volumes, connectivity models, as well as exposed service endpoints, as these form the conduits for that DDoS attack. Should also ensure and of course make sure that your application is able to handle denial of service attacks which are targeted to the application itself. And then also as part of this designing for security is also to leverage the security development lifecycle, which ensures that the Azure is continuously updated to enhance security. Also have designing for scalability. So design your applications to handle increased load. Also try to avoid single points of failure. As this, of course, we know will basically take your resources offline, and then also provision multiple instances to make your system more resilient and scalable. We also have designing defense in depth, and this is all about implementing a multi-layered approach to security, and this is to try to reduce the chance of successful attacks. So with defense in depth, with that multi-layered approach, we're also trying to reduce the attack surface as much as possible to close down on exposed IP addresses and any unnecessary, for example, listening ports. And this could be on load balancers, it could be on your application gateways, to try and limit any attack surface that can come, that can go through those conduits, through those exposed resources. And then, of course, I can go further and also use network security groups to further reduce the attack surface. So this is just a summarized version. Of course, you can always find more of these best practices that you can utilize for your DDoS response plan. We also have DDoS attack simulation and testing. And the reason this is important is that it's always a good practice to test your assumptions about how your services can respond to an attack. And this is by conducting periodic simulations. So during testing, you validate that your services or applications, of course, will continue to function as expected. And there's no disruption to the user experience. So this is where I was mentioning that this is now a proactive approach because this will help you to identify gaps both from a technology and also, of course, a process standpoint. and incorporate them in the DDoS response strategy. So we always recommend when it comes to testing that you perform these tests in staging environments or during non-peak hours, of course, to minimize the impact to your production environment. And there are a couple of benefits to simulation testing. So this is, of course, if you're using Azure DDoS protection, to offer you that validation that indeed it is working as expected. There's also gap identification. It also helps in your incident response optimization. Through this testing, based on the results, you can be able to find out how well incident response processes, and of course, fine-tune it further. It also forms part of compliance, and it can also be a good exercise for your team training. So of course, we always recommend it you to carry out this simulation to ensure that indeed you are protected from DDoS attacks. And just to mention, from an Azure perspective, we do have 4 approved simulation partners. You can see them here. We have Breaking Point Cloud, we have Red Button, Red Wolf, and we have a new partner which was recently added. They're called Maze Bolt. So this is a new partner that they came. They are new simulation partner that came in this month. So again, another addition to our simulation partner repertoire. So with this Maze Bolt here, just to go further into this, so this is a non-disruptive DDoS attack simulation partner. We do have an announcement blog for it. It's called Enhancing Security. It's been published within our tech community blog space. So again, we'd encourage you to take a look and see the benefits that you would get from this new simulation partner. Great, and with that, we come to the end of this second part. And just as a conclusion, to summarize everything that we've discussed, we've seen DDoS attacks are a serious threat. From the report that we saw earlier, the holiday report, we saw the effect, the magnitude that they have. Having a response plan is critical, and we hope that you can use some of what you've shown in this presentation to actually implement that. It's important to have an effective communication strategy, use effective safeguards, best practices, what we saw in terms of defense in depth, and the other practices that we showed. And then, of course, always having regular testing and ensuring that your systems are up to date. And with that, I am going to end it there and open it up for any questions in the event that we have some time left over.
Well, thank you, Andrew. The first one goes in terms of a DRR. Is that only applicable for virtual networks protected by DDoS protection, or is it applicable for, say, public IPs protected with DDoS protection as well?
So I can take maybe this question. So the DRR, the rapid response support, it's only available on the network SKU. Basically, for Azure DDoS protection, we have 2 SKUs. We have the network SKU, which can be enabled on your specific VNet, so it protects all the public IPs you have on that specific VNet. And then we also have another SKU, which is called IP SKU, and that one is enabled directly on your public IP. Now, there are some difference in terms of not in terms of mitigation, but in terms of some of the features, and one of them is rapid response support. So the support is only available for the network SKU. I think it's important to keep that in mind. If that's something that is important, that you need it for your organization, then we recommend to go with the network SKU in that case.
Thank you, Saleem. And the next question goes, is the under DDoS attack matrix enabled only when you activate an anti-DDoS protection subscription, or is it free?
I think I can take that one. So this is one of the metrics that's available in your public IP address. So it's not activated when you put in the DDoS protection. It's already there. It's recommended, of course, to have it on in addition to other metrics and to use it to monitor when the DDoS attack occurs. So when you go or navigate to your public IP address, under metrics, you'll be able to see it, and you can use it to monitor if you're under DDoS attack or not. So this one, no, it is not required for you to have that DDoS protection. But of course, we do recommend with these metrics, and then of course you have your DDoS protection to protect that public IP address resource.
Well, thank you, Andrew. This concludes all the questions. Again, thanks to both of you for being our guests today and for sharing this great information with our community. And also, I would like to thank you, all the SMEs who helped with answering the questions and providing the resourceful informations. And of course, to all the listeners still on the line, if you're someone who wishes to aid in the protection of the world from cyber threats and desires to have a say in shaping our strategies, blueprints, and recommendations, then we invite you to become a part of our security community. We believe that together we can make a global impact. So please join us at aka.ms/security community. This is also where you'll be notified about the upcoming webinars, other events, and announcements. Also, please take a minute submitting your webinar feedback at aka.ms/security webinar feedback. And for those of you who may have additional questions on the topic we just covered or other product related questions to the network security, please feel free to raise them on our Microsoft Tech Community discussion space. The short link for that is aka.ms/ANS community. Thank you all for being part of our community and for joining us on these webinars. We hope to see you next time. Goodbye.